This segment is brought to you by JigMasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to JigMasters.com and use promo code PNF20 and save 20% off your next jig order today.
Welcome to the Paddle and Fin Podcast, the Bass Fishing for Noobs segment, where we try to improve our skills as an angler by learning new techniques or improving the ones we already know. I'm your host, Ryan Milford. Welcome back to the Bass Fishing for Noobs segment of the Paddle and Fin Podcast. I'm Ryan, and we got Sean in here.
Hey, guys.
And we have no one else. It's just me and Sean tonight. We thought I go back to work tomorrow or the day this comes out for the first time in 3 months. And thought it'd be cool to do a little episode to, go over, Sean had a little bit of time off due to the virus thing too. And, we both were able to get out more and fish more than we usually would. And just thought it'd be cool to, just kind of go over, some of the stuff we learned, how we progressed since we've, had a little extra time. And just talk about some of that kind of stuff. So, Sean, I guess welcome to the show.
Thanks, man.
I'm used to saying that to somebody,
but no, it's definitely been an interesting time. I mean, it's been a crazy time. It seems like forever ago when things were normal, but and with my work, I had a couple of weeks where I'd work 1 week on site and 1 week at home, 1 week on site. So the weeks I work from home, I'd get done at 3 and I'd be at home so I could just run out. It definitely gave me more time to fish in the evenings. So I was definitely thankful for that. Going out to the lake, it was kind of a double-edged sword because while I had more time to fish, so did everybody else. So I could definitely notice a lot more traffic on the lakes. But the times when, it wasn't super ideal fishing, either it might have been a little bit rainy or it was colder than normal. There was times where I did have the lake all to myself and actually did well some of those times. So that was definitely interesting.
Yeah, and mentioning that, dude, it is crazy how many people are kayaking now. I guess, being off work or even if they were working, having more like that extra time where they'd normally I guess go hang out with friends or whatever, or go out and do something where you can't do that now. They had to find something to fill the time, so they went out and bought a kayak. You can't hardly find a kayak in stores right now.
Right.
I was in Academy the other day, and they had 2 kayaks, and they were both pedal drive kayaks, like the Pelican pedal drive and something else. I can't remember what it was, but that's all they had. All the the cheaper ones and all that, all gone. And I'm the type of person, I look on Facebook Marketplace constantly just browsing, and I've noticed a lot of people, on these cheaper kayaks that are normally like $250 new, they're posting used ones for sale for $350, $400, and I'm like, what is going? What?
Yeah. I've seen the same thing. My youngest daughter, we have one of those real cheap little 6-footers for her. And the last time I took her out, I was pulling her with my kayak and she fell off of it. And she's like, Dad, I want a bigger kayak. So I've just been looking on Facebook Marketplace for something used and maybe a 10-footer, like a Pelican or something. Just something I was like, I'll just get her a cheap one that's bigger. Mm-hmm. And there is nothing. Everything is either crazy priced or, like you said, or they're not there. I mean, I think people are just buying them so quick. One of our local outfitters, 5 Mountain Outfitters by me, he's restocked and sold out twice now in a month. It's crazy.
I mean, that's good for the kayak shops.
Right.
But
right. he went from really struggling to kind of rocking it at the moment. So it's definitely good for them. So
yeah, and I've when in my browsing, I've kind of looked for a kayak that like maybe my daughter who's about to be 11, something a sit on top for her, and maybe something my wife can use, and even in that same kayak, something like a throw and go boat that I could use if I wanted to. And somebody posted one of those. It's like one of those $600 Pelicans. I can't remember the exact name of it, but they posted it for like $300 and said it was basically brand new. And it shows how long ago they posted it. I sent them a message with like 6 minutes after they posted it, and somebody else had already jumped on it. So it was crazy.
yeah, no, I had a friend of mine who was selling his Hobie, kind of the same thing I did. He got into it recently, and then he decided he wanted to go back to paddling. He just didn't like pedaling, and he sold his Hobie in like 6 hours. And because I was like, oh, because at one point I was actually considering possibly selling mine and getting a pedal drive with instant reverse, just because I was still getting used to that, and I was like, maybe I do want something that's instant reverse. I've since kind of given up on that idea. I've kind of gotten used to pulling the tab, the pedal backwards and stuff, and getting more comfortable with it with the Hobie. But he said, hey, he's like, I sold mine in what just a few hours, and I have 7 other people who keep emailing me about it. So if you want to sell yours, you can
Now's
probably
the time to do it. Yeah.
Right. So and I kind of hemmed and hawed, and I went out quite a few more times after that, and I'm to the point now where I'm pretty comfortable, and I don't think the trade-offs that I would have had to do. I mean, I love the layout of the Hobie, like the cockpit area, just where everything is exactly where I would put it. And I was looking at the other boats, and they either didn't have rod holders where I'd want them, or there wasn't pockets for things, and I didn't like the layouts of most of the other boats. So I decided to stick with it, but yeah, I could have. It's crazy how the market for kayaks is just completely on fire right now. Just this morning, I went out and to a lake I'd never been to before. Friends of mine invited me just to go check it out, and I could not believe them out. And they were, now a majority of them were the cheaper like Pelicans and stuff like that, but there's still a ton of people out. It's funny though, when I go past them and they see me pedaling, everybody's like, hey, look at that, that's really, look, he's not even using a paddle.
Yeah.
So it's definitely fun. But and I like showing people. Just at the ramp, I had a guy asking me, he's like, how stable is that? And I was like, oh, it's great, and I was like, I stand up all the time. He's like, you stand up in that thing? I was like, yeah. So I was like, you want to try it? And he's like, no, it's okay. But yeah, so it's neat. I like talking to people about it, and definitely growing the sport that way. So
Yeah, I think it's awesome that the kayak community is booming, but in the same sense, I believe they talked about it the other night on the anniversary episode. You know, we the education really needs to be out there, because with all those people buying kayaks, there's going to be several of them, not wearing a PFD, not knowing, how to maneuver it in certain situations that could be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. Just here, like last weekend, I was on the river, and it was like a shallow area, and apparently there was like this, like state park around here does like a drop off, and lets you float back down to the park.
okay.
And there were people that not experienced in kayaking or whatever, going down like these rapids, and it's shallow rapids, and it's nothing like too crazy, but there's like a big rock in the middle of this one part, and this lady was on a tandem kayak with her son on it, hit this rock and stopped immediately. Another lady hit her and flipped over, and I just so happened to come around the corner paddling upstream, and saw them, and this lady's like, "Can you help them?" So I went over there and took the lady's kayak back to her, helped her get on there, and then flipped the lady and her son back around to help get her going again. But like they were kind of panicking a little bit, and if somebody or if I wouldn't have been there or somebody else wouldn't have been there to help them out, I don't know. I don't know if their lives were in danger or anything, but that lady was definitely about to lose her kayak if I wouldn't have jumped out and grabbed it because it was flowing downstream.
Were they wearing PFDs at least?
I in the heat of the moment I didn't really look, but I don't think so.
See, that's what
they might
me.
have been. I can't remember.
I see a lot of people that aren't wearing them, and I guess I don't fish the river as much as lakes, but even on a lake, bad things can happen. And just maybe a month ago, I the same Lake Rebben that I fish a lot, they had the rescue people called out for flipped kayak and boaters in the water without so it definitely happens, and I think the more we, as you're right, as the sport grows, there definitely has to be a component of teaching that safety, controlling your kayak, all the different safety things to keep in mind. I know in Pennsylvania you have to have a whistle on your vest. So I'm guessing that if you're not wearing a vest, you probably don't have a whistle either. So there are definitely things that people need to learn, and there's a lot more to it than just going to, wherever and getting the cheapest kayak you can get. I mean, I'm all for people getting out on the water, but you definitely have to do it the right way. So.
Yeah, I was actually talking to a guy last week. This guy was like 6'5", and he was talking about like trying to find a cheap kayak. I'm like, dude, you do not want a cheap kayak. Like, if you're gonna do it, you need to get a decent kayak. You need to spend decent money on it because you're a bigger dude, and one, you ain't gonna be comfortable.
Right, you're not gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, and two, you're not gonna be near as stable as you're gonna want to be.
Right.
But so get back to what we originally talked about, what we were going to talk about. That was a good little rabbit hole.
It happens.
So do you feel like you were able to get out a little more when you were having your weeks off and everything? So do you feel like you've progressed any from being you hear all the time people talk about like how to become a better angler, they say time on the water. So with that a little bit extra time on the water, do you feel like that's helped you?
I do somewhat. I'm still kind of frustrated at myself that I continuously fall back to the wacky rig when I don't have any. I'll go out and say, okay, I want to learn a jig. I'm only going to throw a jig, and then I'll throw a jig for an hour and a half and be like, I haven't gotten a bite yet. I'm going to switch to the wacky rig because I know I can get bites. So, and every time I go out and I'm like, I need to just leave the wacky rig at home because it's my my go-to, and if it's there and I'm not catching fish, I switch to it. So I'm frustrated kind of at myself a little bit for having that opportunity to fish more and not doing anything other than throwing the wacky rig because I know it'll work. I did throw Ned rigs a little bit and had some success on that. So and I just got a new rod. I was St. Croix had a B series rod sale where they something is cosmetically wrong with these rods. Like the one I had in the middle of the reel seat, it had like a little notch out of it. Doesn't affect it at all, but it wasn't cosmetically perfect, so they had to sell it as a B. I guess they said sometimes the logos are crooked or something like that, and I could care less. But
yeah.
Instead of $150, it was like $74. So I just got it's a medium, but it has ultra fast tip. So I'm thinking it's going to be a really good Ned rig rod, and kind of a more finessey kind of thing. So I'm super excited to try that out.
Yeah, that's a pretty sweet deal. I just got me a new rod too, but it wasn't on sale. I got one of those Duckett Jacob Wheeler series rods, and I fished a jigs only tournament last night, and dude, I hung into a 18 incher, and that thing, it performed flawlessly. I don't know, it felt good whenever I set the hook and was reeling it in and everything. I felt like I had the leverage, and something I didn't necessarily feel before. But yeah, so that was pretty sweet. I'm liking it. I didn't get it on discount like you, but I like it.
Good. So how about you? Do you think you've tried other things, or in what ways have you learned?
So I've actually I haven't used the same old stuff that I would normally use. It would be a jig or a whopper plopper for the most part this time of year. And now, up until last night, that jigs only tournament, I hadn't thrown a jig really since probably like late April, mid-April maybe. But I've gotten into some other things. I've caught my first few chatterbait fish. I've caught that that wicked willow from Wicked Weights that we talked about in last week's episode. That right there is my go-to right now. Like, that's all I really want to throw. And I got to credit a little bit of that to Josh Smith over at the Dark Waters Kayak Fishing Podcast, because I was on his podcast after mine and his matchup in the Paddle and Fin Spring Madness bracket tournament. And we were talking about it, and we were like kind of going over what me and his matchup. And so he was talking about it. He's like, yeah, you caught a couple small fish at the beginning, but like I wasn't too worried because you're throwing a jig. You didn't really have like a search bait to like really find the fish, or like a search bait technique or whatever. I was thinking about that. It's like, I really don't. I'm throwing stuff that you cast out and and you work slowly. I don't really have anything that I'm moving quickly. For that time of year, now in the mornings, I could throw a whopper plopper, and I don't even want to do that now because of this wicked willow. That was my thing last year, but this year I haven't really thrown it much at all. But yeah, that's kind of whenever I picked that up after talking to him. It's like, I need some type of search technique, and I got a couple of those wicked willows, and one day I was like, let me put it on there, and started catching fish, and I love it now.
I'm still getting used to it. I have caught one fish on it so far. I had one come off, but I don't know, something about not knowing if there's fish in where I'm throwing it. I don't have that confidence yet that even if they're, that I'm going to throw it and then I will find the fish. To me, I'm like, I just don't trust that there's fish everywhere I'm throwing it. And I don't know if that, not having that confidence is hurting me with my hookup percentage, or just feeling bites or whatever, or if I'm even, not that you can throw it incorrectly. I mean, if you're pretty much throwing it out there and bringing it back to you, even if you're doing it on the bottom or on the middle water column, I mean, but I just don't have the same confidence in that I do. It's as I catch more, I'm sure it will come, but it's definitely still not something I would be like, oh yeah, I know I can catch them on this.
Yeah, dude, I don't even know. I just pretty much throw it all day. I take like 4 rods out with me, and here lately it's been, I might pick up another one of the rods for a little bit, but after 20, 30 minutes of not catching anything, like, let me go back to this. Not saying in that 20, 30 minutes I would have caught a fish with that, but I don't know, I feel confident with it now. But yeah, I feel like I've got to try a couple more techniques. I feel like something I've never really done is I've been able to really like break water down, being off work, and where normally I'd go fishing like one day like every 2 weeks, like every other Saturday or Sunday, something like that. And now, I've been fishing at least once a week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. When I was preparing for my matchup against Ricketts in the Spring Madness bracket tournament, I think I fished like 3 or 4 days that week. And then the week after that, I fished 3 or 4 days when I went up to Kentucky. And like, that's completely not normal for me. So
I think one thing that's definitely helped me with that too is being in the Noobs tournament. It gives me an incentive to go out and try and better my numbers. If it wouldn't be for that, I probably wouldn't feel well. I try and go out as much as I can, keeping my wife happy and everything. But I think having the Noobs tournament in the back of my mind and thinking, like even right now, I feel like I have one fish I know I could upgrade if I just go out. All I would need is like a 16-inch fish, and I can blow away that one 14 1/4 that's still my lowest one, and jump up a few spots in the rankings. That's always in the back of my mind, and it's definitely kind of been driving me to get out more if possible. So I think that's helped me a lot.
Yeah, and I've actually struggled this month with the new tournament. I haven't gotten out as much this month as I did last month. I've still been getting out quite a bit, but I've struggled finding them. I've struggled finding size as well. Last night after that tournament, I finally had enough fish to fill out my limit on the noob tournament. So I got 5 fish now, but like I have 18-incher that I caught last night, and then all the rest of mine are small. I'm pulling it up right now. For me, and I didn't move like anywhere. I think I skipped one place last night whenever I uploaded 2 fish.
I did look at it.
That's how far behind I was. But yeah, after that 18-incher, my next biggest fish is 13 1/2, and then my smallest is 10 1/2.
Okay.
But I've had some issues. Not only when I do get out, I've had issues. Finding fish, finding the bigger fish. I feel like some of that's due to the weather change. We're kind of post spawn now, I guess. But and then I've also had, I haven't really talked about this a whole lot, but I've had issues with my kayak. And so it's been harder to get out not having my kayak. I had to do a warranty claim with my kayak, and Jackson is taking care of me awesome. Like, they're doing awesome and getting me straightened away. But, they're wanting to fix the issue that I was having before they give me another kayak so it don't happen again. So I haven't gotten one back yet. So hopefully in a week or 2 I'll have that, and I'll be getting at it again. Well, I say that I'm gonna be working, so probably won't be getting at it as much as I want to. But yes,
weather's been tough here too. It seems like every night I'll be like, okay, Thursday night I should be able to go when I get home from work, and then I'll get home from work and it'll be thunderstorms in your area. I'm like, oh man, And every time I feel like I could get time to go, a lot of times it's just the time of year that you're going to have those pop-up thunderstorms. I actually went out, what day was it? I think Tuesday or Wednesday of this week, with thunderstorms in the area, and just took a chance that they'd pass the lake by. And I heard rumblings of thunder off in the distance, but it never got to me. And I actually ended up having a half decent night. So it was worthwhile. I just had to, not worry about what the forecast said and just go try it and know if it comes, I got to get off the water. So
yeah, and for people that are newer, that just heard him say that, just be smart about that. You don't want to get caught in the water with lightning, because water and lightning are not a good mixture for but yeah, if you can get out before rain, here lately that's been like the money spot for me. Like, that barometric pressure changes, and they just start biting. And so I've been loving, storms coming in. Let me get out to the water real quick. But yeah,
Speaking of that, since they did the since Josh and Brad did the Podler or the Angler podcast and talking about some of the challenges that they do, I signed up for like all of them, and I was like, well, heck, if I'm using this angler thing anyway, I might as well record the catches I get and at least get in the running for these challenges, because I mean, you can just sign up, and most of them are just like catch 5 fish or catch 10 fish in this amount of time. So I'm like, well, heck, I'm gonna and I've been playing more with that app in the meantime, after I heard that podcast, and I really am starting to get more into it. I like the information that I'm getting. I need to go through and put my gear in and stuff, so that's more helpful. But
yeah, it's definitely a cool concept and everything. My issue is I always forget to turn on my tracking thing, and then when I catch a fish, it's not synced up, and I always forget to hit the button, and so I need to get in the habit of remembering to do that.
I've done it the last several times now. Yesterday when I was out, I forgot to stop my trip, so it recorded my whole drive home. So I ended up having like a 30-mile trip instead of a 2-mile trip. But
wow, you're busy.
Yeah. But my fish catch marks were still there, so that's really what I was most worried about. So, but yeah, that's definitely another thing I've been playing with and learning more from. But
that's cool, man.
Yeah. How about tournaments that you've done? Like, what kind of things have you been? That's another thing besides the Noobs tournament. I know, obviously, we've both been, plugging away at that, but you've done a few other ones, right?
Yeah, let's see, the local group here. I don't usually get to make it out to many of their events because, most of their points events are on Tuesday nights or Saturdays. Well, generally, Tuesday night I can't make because I work out there by one of the lakes that they usually do it at, but I live like 45 minutes away, and so by the time I get off work, drove home, loaded up my kayak, all my gear and everything, and then drove back. I wouldn't be able to make it, and then it goes to like after 9 o'clock at night, and then do awards and everything, and then drive home, and then got to wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning the next morning. Yeah, that would suck. And then
I can't
generally, then generally the kids are in sports, so my Saturdays are taken up. Not now because everything got canceled due to the virus. But so being off, they've had a couple of their like smaller events. Like they have one thing called the 444. I can't remember if I've talked about it on here or not. But so what it is, they have 4 groups of 4 people, and each group will go out for 4 hours and compete against each other. And I did one, and that was like early into this, like like a week after I got off work. So it was like very late March, very early April, something like that. And I pre-fished one day. I'd never fished the area or the lake before. And so I skunked. I caught one fish in pre-fishing, and I skunked during the event. Then I did another one. I did it the same time. Like I just did it together with my round against Ricketts in the Spring Madness tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And I caught 4 fish. I ended up winning that. And so if you win it, the 4 winners from that, and then they'll do a losers round where everybody that lost in their round can go fish that, and then the winner of that gets into the championship round. So there's 5 people, and so we're about to do the championship round. I think we agreed to Friday. That's one of the cool things about it is you all get together and you can agree to a time and place to do it yourself. They just want you to do it within like a week or two, like to get it done so they can keep it moving.
Right.
But so yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm not too hopeful of having my kayak back before we do that championship, but you know, it would be cool to get my kayak back. But we're looking at, I believe, Friday morning for that because I'll be off for the 4th of July holiday on that Friday.
Right.
And then last night, I did a tournament with them. It was a jigs only tournament, and I borrowed my dad's kayak. He's got I think it's like a 12-foot ocean kayak. It's an okay kayak, but it's not what I'm used to. I had to get me some JigMasters Jigs to go for that. The wind was insane at first, and with my pedal drive, normally that wouldn't be that big a deal, but yeah, it was a big deal last night. And so what I kind of did, I found this bank that I got against and just let the wind push me down this bank while I was casting at it, which, kind of worked, but it was kind of pushing me a little too fast. There's this other guy in this Hobie 360 that was just holding in a spot, fishing offshore a little bit. And, I was like, And, so I got in this cove that out of the wind, tried to fish it, didn't get nothing. I caught my first fish, I think like an hour and a half into the tournament. It was from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. And, I got me the 18-incher. I'd actually gotten a couple bites. I think a lot of people had the issue that I had with getting a lot of like short strikes, so they'd like just bump it. They wouldn't take it. I did have another bite on the flipping jig. Well, I didn't actually feel a bite. I just saw my line start running, and I went to set the hook, and I don't know what happened. I don't know if I just had the right angle where I yanked it out of his mouth or what, but didn't get that. But the same thing happened with the 18-incher. I didn't feel a bite. I just felt it start running. And at first I thought it was because I was floating this way. So I was like, wait, that's going a little faster than it has been. So set the hook, brought in that 18-incher. Got a couple more bites. A lot of people struggled last night. So I'm not sure what was wrong. But I got that one on the flipping jig. And then my second fish I got on the swim jig. And it was a 13 and a half. It was a 3-fish tournament. I only ended up with the 2 fish, but I still finished second place. First place was the only person that had caught 3 fish.
Okay.
And I think they ended up with something like 51 inches total. And
okay.
I had 31 and a half with my 2 fish. So I was like, all I needed was a 20-incher, and but yeah, he had me. He beat me for big fish by a 1/4 inch.
Oh wow!
It was 18 and a quarter, and I was 18.
Well, that brings me up an interesting topic. You're talking about fishing in the wind, and it was windy where I was fishing yesterday too. Now I ended up catching a 20-incher, my personal best actually. But I struggled almost the whole time because I was throwing wacky rig, and with the bow in my line, I couldn't see. It took away my sensitivity because I had so much line out. I almost switched to throwing something different because I was like, it's just not working. But then I caught that fish, and then I was like, well, I guess I'll keep doing it a little bit longer. But I was curious, like, what do you do in that sense? Like, because I guess with jig fishing, it's a little different because it's going to take it down. It's not going to be floating down like a wacky worm is, right? It's just going to go down, and then your bow is gone for the most part, right?
Not necessarily, because I was dealing with that a little bit too, with that bow, and I kind of had to get out of the wind for a little bit, get in that little cove, and the wind started chilling out after a little bit, and then it would come and burst, blow hard for a little bit and chill out. I'm sure the jig is a lot better than the wacky rig, just because it's a little heavier. But I think I just kind of worked it a little faster, and then I swapped to the swim jig a little more because there, I was just kind of steadily swimming it, and so that helps keep that line tight. Just when you're constantly reeling, I guess. But that'd be a good thing to talk about with somebody sometime.
Who knows what they're doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because in those instances, a few times I've had luck where this was I was fishing a riprack bank, and I was trying to do the same thing you said about where I'd paddled up so that the wind would blow me down parallel to that bank, but if I casted forward, I would either catch up to it too quickly, and if I casted behind me, I'd be dragging it. And then the wacky rig doesn't work like that. It has to fall straight down, or it's not right.
Yeah, I definitely feel like in that scenario, you have to have a faster moving technique. It was hard, with the flipping jig to do it. The swim jig, wasn't as bad. But I would like to talk to somebody. You hear people talk about fishing banks where the wind is blowing, like the
wind blowing bank, right? Yep.
Yeah, but I'm curious how they really fish it, what techniques they use, how they keep themselves off the bank.
Right.
I mean, a pedal drive, I'm sure would help out a lot, but I didn't have that last night.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to find somebody to talk to about that. So, any of you listeners have any ideas who we could talk to, that would be good to talk to about that. Hit us up in the comments. So.
Yeah, let us know. You fished a tournament here recently as well.
I did. Paul Strom, the guy we had on who talked about Heroes on the Water, he's also a member of the local Kayak Anglers of Central PA that I'm in. And he had said, hey, the first Kayak Anglers tournament, now they had done a couple of kind of like head-to-head matchups where they had 4 or 5 anglers going head-to-head, and that was like their first tournaments when things first started opening up. And I did do that one, but I unfortunately went in the very first group, and it was like still freezing cold. It was like, temperatures were in the 30s, and the wind was blowing like crazy that day. So I think I caught 1 fish and was so glad that I didn't skunk. But I ended up being last place in my grouping, and then, but now the event that I fished last Saturday was the first real event that the Kayak Anglers put on. And Paul had just asked me and said, hey, are you planning on fishing that? And I was like, well, I don't know. It's 2 hours from here, someplace I've never fished. I don't even know where to launch from. I don't even know. I mean, I read what the boundaries were, but I wasn't familiar with the area at all. He's like, oh, well, dude, come out with us. So he kind of let me tag along with him all day, and it was cool. It was a float. We put in and floated for, I think we fished from 6 till 2:30. So we floated the whole way down the Susquehanna from 6:15 to 2:30, and I actually, because I was in the river, I haven't had a ton of wacky rig success in the river. So I started out throwing the Wicked Willow, and I threw that for the better part of the day, and I caught a nice smallmouth. I forget how big it was, but it ended up being good enough for 8th place in the tournament. Just 1 fish. A lot of the guys struggled, but it was definitely a good learning experience for me, watching people who knew what they were doing, or at least had more experience than I did. And that was the first time. I can't tell you how nice it was just to float and not have to worry about having to paddle back upstream. Because when I go out on the river, I almost always have to, if I float downstream, I got to paddle back up. So either I start off by paddling upstream, so I know I'll float back to where I put in, or I know that if I float downstream, I got to go back up. So it was nice being able to just float downstream and not worry about having to backtrack. So that was interesting too. And I'm looking forward to, Paul told me I can, tag along with them for the next month's tournament. So I'm kind of looking forward to that as well. But just, between that and the Noobs tournament and the Paddle and Fin Bracket Challenge, I have fished so much more this year than I have all the last, how many years combined. It's just been definitely a ton of time on the water that I haven't been able to take advantage of until this year. Part of that partly because of the COVID stuff, but just more part of it is just intentionally trying to get out as much as I can.
Yeah, and I calculated up not too long ago. I calculated up my first like 5 years of bass fishing, how many fish I caught, and it wasn't that many. It was like 17 total within the 5 years.
Okay.
And then last year I blew that out of the water with like 36 fish in 2019. And I calculated up not too long ago. I can't remember how many it was, but I had already, beat 2019 number, and we still got a lot of the year left. So I'm excited to see what I can do by the end of the year.
Same here. I feel like I've learned so much through doing this podcast, through just all the connections that I've made through the podcast, through Heroes on the Water, through Kayak Anglers. So many people have reached out and offered to show me how to do something or take me with them, or so I'm grateful for that. And like you said, I no longer have a super bad fear of getting skunked every time I go out. I mean, it still happens, but way less than it has in the past. So I feel like something's improving. I don't know exactly where to put my finger on it as to what it is, or a combination of things, but I'm just super psyched to be able to be seeing results from all the time that I've been putting in. So
yeah, and you've been killing it in the noob tournaments, man. You've been like placing well, getting some nice fish. I ended up doing decent last month.
You came back like crazy.
Yeah, that last day or two, thank God I went to Kentucky, because that's where I got most of my numbers. I think almost all my fish came from Kentucky once I went up there, because it was the last day or two before I don't even think I had a limit yet, and then I upgraded some fish. This year, this month, I'm sitting at 65 and a half, and I'm probably not gonna.
When is this month over? I wanted to look at that, and I forgot.
I believe it's Tuesday. I think Tuesday. Oh, well, actually, I think it ends on the 30th.
Okay.
So I believe, or maybe the 20. I want to say it ends like a day before the end of the month, just so we have a day to, get everything together and everything. But so either Monday, the day this comes out, or Tuesday, one or the other is the last day of the Noobs tournament.
Well, maybe I'll have to try and get out after work tomorrow then, just to see if I can upgrade that one fish, see where I can get. So, but I'm excited this Friday. Unfortunately, the camp that I usually counsel at, we can't have kids this year due to the crappy COVID stuff. But Friday, I'm heading up to do a counselor work weekend. And as part of that, we will have some free time. So, and that is unpressured. It's awesome. So I'm hoping I can get July off to a really good start. So
is that public water?
Is it? Does it have to be public water? Crap.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, at least I'll get some experience.
It would have worked for the Spring Madness tournament, because we didn't really have that limit on there.
Yeah, but there's no cell phone coverage. It's in the middle of the mountains, like the middle of nowhere. So.
Well, at least maybe you'll be able to catch some nice fish, and lots of them.
Oh my gosh, just wait. I bet you on Monday I'm going to come back with some pretty nice pictures, because
like I'm leaving the noob show. I'm no longer a noob.
Especially because it doesn't get much pressure to begin with, but with the camp not even running for the most part, it's going to have zero pressure. They're going to be hungry, so I'm looking forward to it anyway.
Well, good luck with that. I was going to ask you, that fish you caught the Wicked Willow on, what trailer were you using? Like,
I was using a Kayak 3.8 fat impact. I had thrown a white one. I started off the day throwing a white one, and almost like my third or fourth cast, something cleaned it off of that. Like just it hit it, but it yanked it right off, and I was like, oh.
I've
But
had
so
that.
then, after hearing you talk about the sun, what is it,
Sungill.
Sungill, I picked up a pack of those, and that's actually what I caught it on. So I wasn't sure. It was really, really clear water. So I'm like, maybe white is too much. So that's when I switched to that one, and that's actually what I got the hit on. It was funny. Paul was just down the water from me, and I paddled up to him and said, "Hey, how you doing?" Because I hadn't caught anything at that point, and he was telling me, "Oh, I haven't had any luck either. I'm just trying on something different." And I cast like not right next to him, but in his general vicinity, and I hit the fish. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I reeled it in, and he was just laughing. So it was fun, but it just happened to be right when I was parked right next to him. So I'm like,
awesome.
"Sorry, man, I'll give you some space." He's like, "No."
Oh, that's awesome. He seems like a cool dude too.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate them letting me tag along, and him and another friend of mine, Brian. They both kind of let me tag along with him. Brian ended up doing pretty well. I think he got second or third in that tournament. So it was just interesting watching him and how he does things too. So.
Well, awesome, man. We kind of covered our fishing over the whole and how we've grown from that tournaments and just fishing in general. Something I did want to say, I meant to say it earlier when you were talking about, you feel like you're pushed a little more doing the noob tournaments and stuff. And I feel the same way. Like last month, in that last day or two, whenever we didn't have, like the May tournament was over because we ended it like 2 days early.
Mm-hmm.
I fished and I was like, these fish mean nothing really because, I don't have nowhere to submit them. So I've kind of gotten addicted to, being able to catch fish. Like, oh, I'm going to be able to, upload these. I'm going to be able to upgrade some fish with these. So that's really cool. So if you're still contemplating whether or not to do the noob tournament or tournaments in general, try out the noob tournament, man. You can sign up right now for the June or July one, and just try it. It's $10, and it's you get a lot of awesome people in the group if you join the Facebook group, and they help out a whole lot with any advice or questions you had, and it's just I don't know, just a lot of cool people, cool experience. It makes you feel like you're actually fishing for something, but
And just
yeah.
we celebrate each other's wins, and pick each other up when we have tough days. So it's definitely a cool group, and grateful to be a part of it. And thanks to all the listeners and the guys who've jumped in. And there's specific people I see in there all the time, and you guys are just helping to make it a great place. So thanks so much for all the contributions. Yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I don't know. I just feel like we got an awesome community over there, especially for people that are new and kind of nervous, you know, don't really know if they fit into the fishing world yet. Like, that's the place for you. You're gonna get help. You're not gonna be looked down upon or nothing like that. Not that you necessarily would anywhere else, but you kind of feel that way. Like, I'm just now getting the confidence to do these like live tournaments and stuff because I feel like I'm gonna go there and be out of place. Now, I feel comfortable. The more of these things I do, the more confident I feel like, what, I might be able to compete with these guys a little bit. I got
Right.
second place last night. It's out of 12 people, but I won one of the 444 events, so that made me feel pretty good.
Right, and if you're like me, you know, and I signed up for Kayak Anglers. This is my 3rd year as a member, and Saturday was the first tournament that I fished.
And you
First
placed 8th.
I did, and the first 2 years I just kept a tournament date would come, and I'd be like, I'm not going to catch fish. I don't even know where I'm going. I'm not going to do it. And so the new tournament really was kind of just a kick in the rear to be like, okay, you can at least for $10 a month, you can get out there, just try it and see how you do. And, you know, if that's the kick in the pants that you need to get yourself out on the water, then sign up. It's dirt cheap and it's a great community. Definitely check it out.
Sweet. All right, man. You got anything else you want to cover before we wrap this up?
I was just gonna give to the listeners of the Noob Show. We got some cool guests that we're working on lining up. We have a few people that actually have committed to coming on. We're just trying to get them scheduling ironed out and stuff. So we definitely have some good stuff coming. So stay tuned to us, and we'll bring that to you as soon as we can. So.
All right. Well, you told me last week you were gonna make me do the outro, didn't you?
Yep.
I was like, should I remind him or I wasn't sure if you'd remember, but
I was kind of thinking it was on you this time.
All right, guys. This has been Bass Fishing for Noobs, bringing you the techniques, tips, and tricks. Techniques. I didn't think it was going to be this hard.
Yeah, I thought you were going to nail it. Like I was like right off the bat, and then you second guessed yourself.
Should I get all like animated about it? This has been the Bass Fishing for Noobs segment. Bringing you the techniques, tips, and tricks. Okay, it's been Bass Fishing for Noobs, bringing you the techniques, tips, and tricks to help you rip more lips.
There you go. Nailed it.
Later, y'all.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_and_fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_and_fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. TRC Covers, protect your investment. Ketch Products, shout out to Ketch Products. Go to ketchproducts.com and put the Paddle and Fin logo directly on your catch board. Shout out to JigMasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to JigMasters.com, use promo code PNF20 and save 20% on all your jig and tackle needs.